So yeah, I think your penis is pretty small after looking at the picture, SD.
It could be. It could be. It was out of focus.
Sorry, I
You know.
couldn't resist. Okay, here we go.
Right. So we are being recorded. Just so that this is recorded. So I guess everybody just three, two, one, go. I'm not gonna moderate too much. Just fucking have at it, I guess.
Okay. So does anyone have an argument for or against vegan YouTube channels having a basically what's called an echo chamber? So complete anti-vegan comments deleted. Anyone who disagrees with veganism at all is deleted. Anyone who has any type of even like rational question, say, hey, you know what? Maybe where do you get your protein from? Boom, gone. All you get are positive or people asking like normative questions about veganism. Does anyone have any problems with a place like that existing?
Yes.
Oh, go on then.
Um, well, why wouldn't they? I mean, I thought the goal was to bring non-vegans into veganism. Why be so? Why would any group
Mm,
act so fragile? If veganism is correct and it's essentially unable to be argued against, then one wouldn't have to censor any non-vegan opinion.
yeah, yeah. But do you think there's any harm that comes from doing this? I mean, I do.
Um,
Um, I just don't think there's. I think there's lots
what
of good that
what do
comes from it as
you
well.
what do you what do you believe is like harm? Like what do you mean by harm?
Um, I I don't. Well, I have a moral sentiment that people should be allowed to speak their mind in an open forum. Whether we agree that YouTube is an open forum or not could be argued as well. I feel very strongly that there's an injustice there, but that's just my moral sentiment. But I also think that if they're promoting things, let's say they're promoting veganism that's raw and like you should only juice and like you're not getting your full set of nutrients. I think there's harm being done there, and if there's harm being done, then there's a wrong being done because there's going to be some sort of type of suffering. Um, and I think there should be some pushback. So somebody who's like maybe not as I don't know, some new into veganism that sort of they're reading these comments and they're just getting like positive reinforcement. And I see people coming from the carnivore community where this is done, and they come into the vegan chat trying to correct us because they think we're all stupid, right? They, oh my god, these people I've heard these all these stupid things about them, right? I'll go in and correct them, and suddenly they haven't realised, that they've been fed a load of bollocks. And
I
I
don't
think it's obviously going to be the same with the vegans, right?
yeah I don't see why if someone says something that I guess is incorrect, I mean I don't see what the problem is with the vegan just saying, oh, that's incorrect and here's why. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
I uphold the belief that not allowing certain speech
Hmm.
or even lifestyle because the other person has some sort of moral objection to it or some their own ideas is a sign of fragility.
Hmm.
That's why I'm opposed to it.
I just think it sets a bad precedent, and I'm really reticent to sort of to start the slippery slope argument. But it does
Yeah.
seem true that if we do start doing this, then it would seem to be that, oh, that's a good model. Like this person has made a lot of money and a lot of followers from doing this. It's a safe space, and it is. As a vegan, I go in there and I do feel it's like, wow, this is like such a positive place. Like my own sentiments are echoed back to me. It's kind of beautiful. It's like nobody's like disagreeing and everyone's like patting each other on the back. It's kind of beautiful. But then that's not what I want because I can be very much fooled like that. I'm very easy. I'm not somebody who's not easily fooled. I am very easily fooled because I can't tell the intentions of others easily. So I've gone absolutely the other way. and that's why I'm so argumentative and like search out other people's like criticisms. So I think that these people are going to be very easily fooled, and I don't want people to hold wrong ideas, and I don't want them to spread wrong ideas. I think it's going to echo out into the world and be wrong, and it's going to create more wrongness. I don't think it's a good thing at all, but I can't say that it's like that wrong. I mean, maybe one or two would be okay. That's where I'm at. Maybe one or two would be okay. I remember the old when feminism started. We used to have what are called men's clubs in Britain,
Yeah.
where by law there was no law protecting women's access to everywhere. There were men's clubs in the 1980s and 90s, and I remember a law came in that said you couldn't preclude women from anywhere. You couldn't preclude a club based on race, sex, anything. Like people had to be allowed in, and there were these men's clubs where men would go to get away from their wives, and women weren't allowed in. And suddenly there was these at the very back. There was like 10 women who would just turn up after the law just to piss off everyone. Like, we're allowed in, and then after 6 months they disappeared, and I've never heard another thing again. And I doubt very much that those women are there now enjoying it. They were just expressing their right to be there, and I think it settled down, and I think that's what's going to happen naturally. I don't think you should block people from coming in. I think you should, like what I do on vegan YouTube, is bore people to death. I argue with them and bore them.
um, is there like a specific example of this that?
I can give
Because I
hypotheticals.
feel
I
like
can't give
this is
specifics,
coming from.
unfortunately.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I have a good example. Like, have you ever seen the Facebook group "Why Are Carnists Like This"?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, it's run by a guy named Andrew Graves, and you'll run into him because he always uses a potato as his profile picture. He's in Ask
All right.
Yourselves group. Yeah, and
Uh,
so yeah, but they run what's essentially an echo chamber. And Mary McCall, I don't know if you know Mary McCall, but she is a they both run like echo chamber vegan Facebook groups, and it's just kind of ridiculous. The rules that they have are just kind of ridiculous because they want people to become vegan, but they have so many rules that nobody can ask a question and they get kicked out. So
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the question for me is there's two different questions. Would I run a group like that? I think the answer is no. And the second question is, do I have a problem with other people doing it? And that's the problem I'm having. Like, I see things in terms of harm and outcomes. So if you could say to me, look, Twisted, so if someone's going to run a group like that, other people are going to want to run groups like that, and then there's going to be a knock-on effect. It will be like this. I will rally against it. I will, I've already pretty much denounced my moderation privileges in certain other YouTube channels. I just won't do it. I won't be banning anyone who disagrees with the owner or content provider. I won't do it. I'll argue with people. I'll go hard on them if that's what they want, but I won't ban any dissenting voices. I feel very strong that's wrong. But then I don't know. The question I was asked by a certain person is, how can I say that and then also moderate for a group or a person who has a zero tolerance banning policy for any trolls or anyone who disagrees with them? How can I hold two different positions? And like I have a reason, but like I don't feel it's justified right now. I need to think about it a bit more. Noah, are you like I've seen you in vegan YouTube, right? I've seen you like commenting.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen you on Foot Soldiers, maybe Michelle Lowe's and things like that, right?
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
So, like Foot Soldier's got an open comment section. He doesn't delete anyone. But recently there was a troll there who was making things. I think he was making the comment section unbearable. I was trying to attract him to me by engaging him a lot and like winding him up. So I was the focus because I love trolls. I'll fuck with them all day long. And if he's listening, Marmite, join this server and I will fucking destroy you, you prick. But anyway, if these people do want to come at me, they'll come at me rather than other people. But what I was hearing from other people is that they won't comment when he's commenting because they don't want to attract the attention. And I think that person ought to be banned then. I feel that's like a threshold in which I would ban somebody. And I feel that's reasonable. But under Michelle, I don't know if you watched Michelle's last video. She said she's going to delete anyone who's anti-vegan. I feel that is maybe a step too far.
So I think it makes sense to have a conversation about all things and have different opinions on things. But if someone is trolling, then it's not really a positive effect on the conversation or something. So it makes sense to delete trolls that are really not effective or.
Yes. Yeah. And then the next question I got from a certain person was, what gives you the right to decide what a troll is and what is somebody who has a legitimate concern? But this to me is an argument from vagueness. This just begs the question, right? What how do you know? How do you, it's like I use my moral judgment. This is how I navigate my life. I make moral decisions. I do things based on what I decide is right. And I'll do the same thing there. But then another moderator might decide, you know, that somebody who disagrees with them. And I've been through this with a guy called Race Lever, who's also a prolific moderator.
God.
Well, yeah, and he was a moderator with me on Perspective Philosophy's channel, and somebody came in with a question, and he just got into an argument with him. And God love him, he just got pissed off and decided to ban him. What I did was get rid of him, and not get rid of, I told him, I warned him a few times that like, this isn't what the owner wants. Lewis got rid of him and brought the other person back, and the other person came into the server and actually became like a pretty good member of the server. He's not vegan or anything, but he has good arguments and he, you know, back and forth. And I feel that's what we're going to miss. That's exactly what could happen and will happen if we just ban everyone. That's not what we want. So it's the balance. People are looking right now for the balance. And I think it's a continuing problem, as we were talking about earlier. I don't think there's going to be a point at which you can say, well, it's this point here and it's this point here. I think that's what people are looking for me to say. Well, this is exactly what, looking for essences of the position that I hold. And I can't give it to them. I can give them my decision-making process, which is, you know, expected utility and, you know, three-phase fuzzy logic and all that fucking bollocks, but they're not going to understand it. And they say to me, I think you've missed the point. I don't think you understand what other people are saying. So if anyone's got any opinions, I'd like to hear them. I'll stop talking now. Thank you.
I think that's a very interesting situation to be in. With different moderators, I guess you should always try to act in the. You should ask yourself what the owner of the server wants, depending on what the server's purpose is, basically.
Well, let's shift gears a bit, because I think Brandon had something that he wanted to say. So let's hear some thoughts from Brandon.
Yeah, sure. So Noah said he disagrees with my first proposition, which is that I'm not morally obligated to eat a vegan diet. So I would like to hear his argument as to why I am.
Okay. So my argument would be to, if you put yourself in the victim's perspective, as we always like to say it, I guess I personally would want someone else to do everything they can for me. And in that sense, it would also make sense to, if I am not in the victim's perspective, but if in the perspective of the one who's doing the bad thing, it would make sense to also have some sort of obligation not to do the bad thing, you know.
Right. So your argument is that I should consider the animals' lives,
I
because
guess
I
so.
wouldn't want somebody to infringe on my life. Well, first
Yeah,
of
basically.
all, by supporting plant food production, unless you grow the food yourself, you're still supporting the deaths of animals. Like, because they use pesticides, they shoot animals to defend the crops. Small animals get caught in the crop harvesters, etc. So I don't see why picking one food production over the other is more moral when both of them contribute to animals being killed.
Yeah, I don't really see that as in counter arguments. You're just saying that vegans are still killing animals, so
Yeah,
it's
your
not.
argument was to consider if I was the victim. So there's victims either way. I don't see why you should favor either side.
Yeah, but you're kind of saying, so you know that animals still need to be fed and stuff. So you're definitely going to cause harm. That's obvious. And the definition
Right,
of
but
veganism is
they
that,
don't have to be fed the crops that are grown for you, for example. Like they can just eat grass. And then what deaths is that going to contribute to? Because nobody's shooting animals to defend grass, and nobody is using pesticides to defend grass. So I'm not arguing for specific agricultural methods like feeding animals crops that they grow. I'm arguing against the fact that I'm obligated to eat a vegan diet, and I can support grass-fed farms, for example, and not be contributing to as many deaths potentially, or be contributing to equal amounts of deaths. And that's your whole argument against my position. So I don't see why I should take that and go, okay, I'll go vegan instead of stopping supporting the farms that are also feeding the animals crops.
okay, I think the difference we're having here is that I'm more coming from a point where intuition is very important. So if I were to say I'm going to kill a cow for its beef, I'm doing like I'm literally deciding to kill the cow. But if I was to say I want a carrot, but in the process someone or some insect might die, I'm not really having the intuition to kill the insect. I'm literally just having the
I'm not
intuition
just
to
saying
get carrots.
insects, because there are small animals that die in these
Yeah,
crop
as
fields.
well. Yeah, rabbits, etc. But it's the same point.
Yeah. So it's about your intuition. But why does that mean that I'm obligated?
Well, I mean, I'm a deontologist, so speaking from Kant's second categorical imperative, they shouldn't use humans as pure means, and I'd also expand it to animals. And in deontology, intuition is pretty much everything. You don't really
All
think
right,
of
so
consequences.
are you drawing a distinction between the animals being killed because we kill them to eat and the animals being killed because we kill them to defend things that we're going to eat? Are you saying that one of them is wrong and one of them isn't?
Basically, yes. It's
So
about the intuition.
why is that the case, that it's wrong to kill an animal for food as opposed to killing animals for your food?
Well, I mean, you should of course. That's obvious. You should of course try to keep the harm as small as possible in both cases,
Yeah.
right? So I would. So deaths are basically inevitable in both cases, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But the intuition in the first case, which is to kill a cow for a beef burger or something, is to literally kill the cow. So
You mean
there's no way
you mean
around
the
it.
intention?
You're definitely going to cause harm. Yeah, basically, you have the intention to 100% cause harm. While
All right,
if
but you
you kill,
know that by supporting your plant agriculture that you're going to cause harm too. You just can't put a number on it, which means that it could technically be higher. So you should be agnostic on the position, which means that I'm not obligated to do it. It means that I don't know which is more moral.
I mean, no, not really. It's still about the intuition, right? So
You mean the intention?
Intention, yeah. Sorry.
Right. So why does the intention matter?
Because if you think about it, morality is subjective. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Then it's only right if from my subjective point it is right. I don't know if you understand what
So
I'm
it
meaning.
just is that way because it is. Like, I don't see why. I don't even see why it's not part of your intention to kill the animals to defend your crops, because you know that that's happening and your intention is to support that when you buy those products, because you know that those animals
Oh
are
yeah,
being
yeah.
shot and killed in combine harvesters, the insects are being killed with pesticides. So if you know that, your intention is to support that. So do you disagree with that?
I mean, so my point was basically that in the first case, harm is 100% included, and in the second case, there would be a possibility that it's not included. But of course, I do agree with your point that it's definitely going to be included
So
in the case
you're
of
appealing
getting
to
vegetables. So
possibility.
basically, yeah.
Well, if there's a 99.99% chance that you're going to cause more harm, would you then say that, okay, there's a chance that I'm not going to, so I'm going to go with this food production? Or are you going to say, okay, then I should probably go with this because it's more likely that I'm going to cause less harm?
But then I don't. You have to further explain the point with the intuition, your counterpoint, because I'd still definitely cause harm in the first example.
Sure, that's definite. And let's say there's a 99.99% chance of you causing more harm. Like, let's say it's 100 times more harm, for the sake of showing my point, that if you support the plant agriculture, are you going to say, well, there's a possibility that I'm going to cause less harm, so I'm going to do it? Or are you just going to round it up to 100% and then support the other food production?
Oh, that's a good question, actually.
Because I know what I would do. I would say, well, the chance of me increasing well-being in this circumstance is way higher, so I'm going to go with that, even though there is 100% chance of me decreasing well-being a bit. But it's way more likely that you're going to counteract that by supporting the other food production.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. That makes sense. But in this special case of veganism versus meat or even grass-fed, I don't think it's practically possible in that sense.
So now you're talking about pragmatics instead of
Yeah.
morality.
I just changed the topic actually.
So you're moving the goalpost. It's no longer about moral obligation. It's about pragmatics.
May
Yeah,
I ask a question?
Okay, so you hold it. So you can see
Sorry.
that that I'm not morally obligated.
Yeah, I
Do you
guess you
concede
brought
that?
up some good points there.
So let's see what Patty has to say.
No, I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
is veganism about less harm or zero harm?
Definitely not zero harm because it's not possible.
Okay.
So,
Mhm.
but I'd also not say it's about causing less harm. It's about respecting rights, I'd say, and about
I'm
justice.
sorry, say it about what?
Respecting rights and justice.
Respecting a right. Okay, so now you've brought up rights. What rights do animals have?
The right to live and not to be used as products, I'd say.
Who do those rights extend to? Who is able to violate those rights, and who's able to abide by those rights?
I guess there are certain situations under which you can violate those rights.
Are rights for animals universal?
Universal in which sense?
In which everything must abide by those rights. That all animals have rights, and so nothing may encroach upon them.
I guess so.
So what do we do with carnivores?
I think they still do have basic rights, human rights.
Yes, but carnivores encroach on the rights of other animals.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So what I wanted to ask you,
Yep.
what I previously wanted to ask you was that I kill animals for my own food, and if I kill 2 cows to feed my family for a year, and in order for you to eat, I assume that you have to go to the and I raise most of my a good bit of my own vegetables, but I assume that you have to go to the store to get
Yep.
your food, right?
Yes.
So you're relying on traditional monoculture, and I guarantee that you are financially supporting an industry that kills billions of animals a year. Um, so who has the more ethical lifestyle, me or you?
But doesn't it then come back to intuition in the
Can
sense
I
that
make a point quickly?
Yep.
So you
Sure.
you said he's supporting an industry which kills billions of animals per year as opposed to 2, but you don't know what proportion of those animals that he's responsible for. So I think you would have to try and figure that out first before you can compare them. And then you would
Sure.
also have to see what the animals are and how much you value them. Because like, what if he's
Yeah.
killing 10
Sure.
rats?
I'm not
And
good.
you're
I'm not
killing-
great at math, so I'd have to assume. I'm guessing a great bit of what you eat is probably maybe almond or soy.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we can use this really simple example that we know of. When you have to harvest soy, it ravages the soil. It's really, really not great for soil. In fact, the World Wildlife Fund, who it was part of the biggest efforts to help conserve panda populations, denounces soy as a good alternative for vegans and for anybody because it's such a terrible it's such a terrible crop for the environment, like period. Brazil is one of the largest soy import. They are the largest soy importer in the world, and in fact, they produce far more soy and use far more land, I believe, than they do for cattle. But if you listen to a lot of vegan activists, they will tell you that cattle are the reason that the Amazon rainforest is being destroyed, when really soy amounts for most of that. So, in all likelihood, where are you from? What country do you live in?
Austria.
So, in all likelihood, some of your soy is probably being imported from Brazil, right? I know for
Probably.
the United States, we get a good bit of soy imported, I think, but we get less than 1% of our beef is imported from Brazil. So, I still have to ask, even though I can't fully do the math, who do you think has the more ethical lifestyle, me or you?
So I guess this is hard because I don't really agree with the utilitarian perspective that
Right, but you
you're
did
trying to.
say after you conceded that I'm not morally obligated to go vegan, that you wanted to make points about pragmatics, and this
Yep.
is a pragmatic point because we're talking about how sustainable it is, how much land it uses, and of course vegans don't have to support these, but a lot of vegans do. So that doesn't mean that I should go vegan for pragmatic reasons. It means I should support more sustainable agriculture and use less land, but that doesn't entail veganism.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. That's exactly what Brandon said that I'm trying to get across. I raise animals for my own food. In all likelihood, I have a far more ethical lifestyle. I have a less carbon footprint than any vegan living in, say, New York City, and possibly even you.
Yeah, probably.
Right. So now we've got so you concede on that. That's a concession on the moral aspect and the pragmatic aspect, and that coincides with the environment. So I think that is
Although
still
to the last point, I'd still try to say something. I don't think that if everyone was to try to do the same lifestyle that Patty lives, if that would be practically possible.
No, I don't think that it is practical for everyone to go back to this agrarian lifestyle. What I do think, so for example, I've had a mini conversation with Avi about this, and for some reason, despite the fact that Avi is going to be a doctor, he's going to be very well paid, and more than likely he's going to be paid over $100,000 salary, which in the United States is great. And yet he does not feel some sort of obligation to not engage in traditional monoculture. I've asked many vegans. Now there are vegans who grow their own vegetables as they should. But there's too many who don't. And I really don't understand why, for example, vegans who say that they're trying to do everything possible to get out of the food system and not be a drain on the food system and to not support traditional monoculture, they do things like what Avi does and goes and says, well, why don't you just support traditional monoculture? Why isn't, I don't know if he does, but if he's not, like, why isn't Avi and Foot Soldier, who also brags about his income, why aren't they growing tomatoes in their house, which is super fucking easy to do? Why aren't they growing lettuce in their house, which is super freaking easy to do? There are things that they can do to lower their footprint, especially when it comes to their financial support of modern monoculture and crop agriculture, but they choose not to.
I think an important point to make here is that you said you don't think it's practically possible for everybody to live Patty's lifestyle, but I think even if that is true, it's irrelevant, because I would say the same claim of veganism. In general, how people do vegan diets, I think is very taxing on the environment and uses a lot of land. So that doesn't mean that you should go vegan just because it's not practically possible to do an alternative.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because being vegan doesn't entail being more ethical, being better for the environment, or being better pragmatically in any way. It's about other decisions, and it's not just about going vegan. We need to get more vegans to argue with.
Yeah, I'd like to hear some more perspectives on this actually.
No, we're not trying to keep you from being vegan.
Yeah, the proposition is we're not obligated to go vegan for any reason that you would go vegan, essentially.
I just had the most delicious grapes in the world.
Can you provide a syllogism for that?
Red grapes are absolutely delicious, and no one can tell me otherwise.
Okay, well, I will tell you otherwise now and disprove your point. Red grapes are not absolutely delicious. Therefore, you are wrong.
Well,
You said,
I don't know.
but
My
nobody
taste
can
buds
tell you
told me
otherwise.
different.
No, but you're wrong on the proposition that nobody can tell you otherwise, because I proved that by telling you otherwise.
You did?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't remember you telling me otherwise.
Okay, I'll do it again. Red grapes are not absolutely delicious.
What? Did you guys hear that? It sounded like wind.
Okay, and I'm now certain that you need to get your hearing checked. This is what happens
Love
when
you,
we run out
Brandon.
of vegans to argue with.
Right.
SD, what do you think of the discussion? Maybe he's gone for a piss.
Wow, he just left us. He's like, "Oh shit, that was so boring. Let me go take a leak."
I don't think that's a reason to go and take a piss. It would be unrelated.
So Noah, how did you become vegan?
It was like 5 years ago.
Mm.
How, not when.
Yeah.
It's okay, Bray.
I always liked animals. No, I don't know. I saw the footage of what is going on in the food production industry and didn't really want to support it.
My question
Did
would
you
be,
see?
why did
Oh.
that lead to you going vegan rather than not supporting the factory farms that do this?
I don't feel like this so-called grass-fed beef stuff is really actually available anywhere
Well, it
near
is
me,
if
at
you.
least.
Oh, maybe not. I'm not sure about you, but there's grass-fed farms everywhere. But yeah,
Well, he said he lives in Austria, and I don't know.
yeah,
Now,
I can't say that there is.
was this footage that you saw that came out of Austria, or was it footage that you saw from other countries?
Both.
Okay.
Hey guys, what are we talking about?
Basically,
thanks,
Noah
Twisted.
conceded all of the points, and I
Oh,
absolutely stomped
sorry.
him.
Yeah, he destroyed
Okay.
me.
Oh, did he? Okay.
he
So,
he ass busted him.
Yeah.
oh man, that's kind of sucks.
To be fair, he did agree to my propositions, which is fine. And
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, but
So,
that's 'cause
what's the
you're wrong.
argument against like veganism then? Like, I don't
I
understand
said
it.
no. I said that I'm not morally obligated to go vegan, and being vegan doesn't entail being more ethical than a non-vegan, as my original two propositions. But after I
Yeah,
gave him a hypothetical, he resorted to pragmatics, and he also conceded that I'm not also obligated to go vegan for pragmatic reasons.
I agree. See, as a subjectivist, you can't sort of like compel anyone to go vegan, right? You have to pick up people